Okay, let's get into this What's News with Nefrutat, because there is some breaking news. We've got to get into what's going on in Gabon. That was just like, bam, we're here. So I'm also going to round off the latest in Niger. But before I get into that, what I will say is doing these What's News segments has been interesting, and just following the trends of news reports, because obviously being Africans in the West, the initial news reports you get are of a certain narrative.
Of course.
So even now we get news headlines just as notifications on our phone, they come through. And most often it's BBC, Sky News. If anything, when you Google, you get CNN, things like that. So it's always from the Western perspective. So I found it important. I look at those news headlines and other European news outlets, but I focus more on looking at African outlets and reports from people who are actually there and whose lives it affects, because they give the most well-rounded point of view to me.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Without bias.
Yes. The Western media has a tendency to deceive you. Propaganda, deception. Yeah, and their own perspective.
Yeah. Right. That's really what we've been bombarded with living here.
Exactly.
Their point of view. So it's always good to be conscious of that. Okay, let me get through these headlines real quick, because I know you got somewhere to be.
Oh, I don't want to put it like that. I'm a busy man, It's just one thing after the other, But it's all good. Things are building, right? Things are happening.
Things are happening. So to round off the latest in Niger, Niger's ruling military government has ordered police to expel France's ambassador, a move France says the army officers have no authority to make.
Right, no authority, right.
This is the same strategy of neighbouring Mali and Burkina Faso, who seek to distance themselves from their former coloniser, France. So the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, said on Monday the ambassador would stay in Niger, and reiterated France's support for Bazoum, the removed president, we know Mohamed Bazoum. And then also on the sides, the EU are in talks about imposing sanctions. The Nigerian president, Bola Tinubu, who is also the chair of ECOWAS, on Thursday, he suggested a 9-month transition back to democracy for Niger's new regime. But the new sitting president of Niger, General Abdulrahman Chiani, announced a transition period of no more than 3 years and warned foreign countries against any military intervention.
Right.
Indeed. ECOWAS said it was ready to use force to restore constitutional order in Niger. The Nigerian president also warned on Thursday that the sanctions imposed on Niger by ECOWAS would not be eased without positive adjustments, quote unquote, by the military. So
everyone kind of standing their ground right now.
I don't really think ECOWAS want that smoke. Even France, when they were asked about it, they were like, we're monitoring it. Because ECOWAS is like, you're going to back us if we intervene? They were like, we'll look at the proposal.
We'll look at the proposal. Yeah, it's an interesting one, because it's not going to be easy for them to decide, because I think people are aware that it's a new time that we're entering in. A time where, Africans worldwide, but in Africa included, are going to rise up. It's inevitable. And they're going to start to claim what is theirs. So everyone's kind of, what do we do? And it's not straightforward. One thing that Baba Yanun explained as well is that by nature, as Africans, we are protected by our overseers to some degree. So especially as we enter this new time. So it's not as easy as it might have appeared before, where people can just invade without thinking about it. Violence is not straightforward. So it's an interesting one. Watch it play out is what I would say. Watch it play out. Let's see where it goes.
So let's get on to Gabon.
By the way, before you got Nigeria, still standing their sellout ground. They're not.
Yeah, well, it's ECOWAS, isn't it? They're kind of in the West pocket. Nigeria, they're just like, we want the West still backing us. They're really going to play ball in that sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's important to know the coups, as they like to say, in Gabon and Niger follow Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali and Chad as the latest in a line of African countries where the army has recently seized control. All of these countries are former French colonies.
Yeah, right.
So let's get on to Gabon. Key things to know about Gabon, as said, former French colony. It's an oil-rich Central African nation. It was a centre of the transatlantic slave trade, so we still see the effects of that. And the new coup in Gabon is the 8th coup in 3 years in Africa. Right. So at the heart of what's going on in Gabon, it's important to know about the Bongo family. So the Bongo family have had reign over Gabon for more than 5 decades.
It's a long time.
So Gabon gained their apparent independence in 1960. So there's 2 names we got to know. The father, Omar Bongo, and the son, Ali Bongo. Mm-hmm. So the father, Omar Bongo, came into power in 1967 and was backed by France to do so. And he ruled for 41 years.
That's a long rulership.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It was a long time.
41 years straight.
It was like...
Yeah, I'm in charge. That's the end.
It was really his transition that got him to leave the seat.
Yeah.
So when he passed in 2009, his son Ali Bongo Ondimba, is his full name, took over. And he was in the seat up until what recently took place.
Until the coup.
Yeah, so on Saturday, August 26th, Ali Bongo had been declared the winner of a 3rd term of presidency. And the opposition claimed the election had been rigged. So Wednesday, August 30th, the soldiers announced they were cancelling the results of Saturday's polls and put Mr. Bongo under house arrest.
Right. Was it in the basement
and closed
again?
the country borders. I don't know where it was, but...
Just in his house.
I saw the video. Did you see it?
I haven't seen the video yet. I haven't seen only what you've told me.
I mean, this is how I know I'm going to hell, because when I saw the video, he's there pleading, but my mind just strayed to other things. I was like, who's filming this? I don't... And the comments got me a bit, because he was like, please make noise. I'm calling one of my allies to make noise. Don't know where my son, my wife is. And people in the comments like, no, we're not going to make noise. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So he went on online, I guess, and just
the video
started pleading for help.
I guess was on social media. I don't know. I guess they still let him. Someone there have a phone.
Yeah, I guess he had a phone. I guess. Yeah, go ahead, make your pleas. We don't care.
It's important to know. Bongo, his wife is French. So
interesting.
She's of the Caucasian persuasion. Yeah,
Caucasian persuasion. That is interesting. Very interesting indeed. Very interesting indeed. So it was a similar situation. They just got up like, no, we're not having this.
Yeah, it's really. I have a quote from a Gabon citizen I get into, but it's really the people was tired of the Bongo family's reign. Just a little fun fact for you, I thought I'd throw at you. Bongo's father used to be an animist, and then they converted to Islam. So it's just a fun fact for you.
Interesting, yeah. Animism, by the definition you see, would have been a traditional African way of life, and that's just the acknowledgement that everything has a spirit, right? There's a world beyond this, really, and that spirit is the animator, so to speak. So. Yeah, that's interesting, because traditionally that's our culture if you trace it back before these modern day religions came in. So, very interesting. It's all very interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
So, the military that took over, in their statement, they said the recent election did not meet the conditions for a transparent, credible and inclusive ballot so much hoped for by the people of Gabon. We've decided to defend peace by putting an end to the current regime. the officer said, adding that he was speaking on behalf of the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions. In the past, there had been calls for Bongo to step down, especially after he suffered a stroke in 2018 and he'd disappeared for a while. There was an attempted coup then, but it failed. Mm-hmm. So during Bongo's presidency, Gabon maintained close relations with France under a system known as France-Afrique, receiving both political and military support in exchange for business favours. So troops, even we see that situation with Niger, there are like 1,500 troops there under the guise of keeping peace. Right. But France was the country that destabilized these countries when they colonized them. So it's really, they're keeping their best interests, making sure no one steps out of line, deals go through in their best interests. Because these deals, the country doesn't benefit from it on a whole. And that was part of people's upset. They felt like the Bongo family were just getting rich while certain people were still in poverty. Right. Getting rich over being in the West Pocket. Yeah. So country with such resources, like we look at Gabon, it's oil rich. The majority of people shouldn't be in poverty.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
In countries, right? So Africa is very rich.
It doesn't make any sense. And you look at Saudi Arabia, for instance, right now, who are, if anyone follows football, or as the Americans call it, soccer, but it's called football. You'll see that Saudi Arabia are just buying up everyone and everything in the football landscape right now, as well as building up their economy and in an unlimited fashion because they've got oil. So oil makes you rich if the country is run to the benefits of the actual owners of the country, the actual people of the country. And the idea that, as we said with Burkina Faso, as we said with Mali, as we said with Niger, the idea of people being so poor in a land that is so rich in resources is madness.
It doesn't make sense. It's
madness, and it has to be put to an end. And Africa have decided right now, it's time for this to end, and it's no coincidence that it's happening now. And we've said it over and over again. It's our time. We just have to step up and take it. And it looks like the West Africans saw a large amount of them are like, we're going to step up. We're gonna take it.
So the people of Gabon reacted positively. There were videos of them celebrating, circulating online, which I did see. Mm-hmm. And it included footage of the soldiers carrying their newly placed president, which I'm going to get into him, on their shoulders and shouting president. Just a quick quote from a Gabonese student. The student said, "I assure you that what the Gabonese people wanted was just for the Bongo PDG system to leave power." One student said, referring to the Bongo's political party, according to the news outlet Reuters, because as we said, 60 years is too much. So meanwhile, the military army, I call them like the interim government. They like to call them junta, but that has a negative connotation. They named General Brice Oligui Nguema as Gabon's new ruler. But the thing about him, still watching that because I'm looking at certain African outlets, certain information, they're not really sure because he still has ties to the Bongo family. He served as the Bongo father's guard. He was the Bongo family has accusations of corruption, and he was tied in with that. So they're looking at it like, is this the leader the country wants? We'll see whether he's really about the people.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out.
But the ultimate consensus is people are just tired as well.
Yeah, tired of the Bongo family in the main.
And they wanted them out.
Yeah. Well, 60 years will do it.
They wanted them out.
Yeah.
Just a last thing, when Nguema spoke to a French newspaper, he said Bongo, who, was under house arrest, he said he was enjoying all his rights as a normal Gabonese citizen. So that's the latest they've said on him. So the general consensus is countries want France gone.
Yeah.
From there. Yeah.
Colonizer.
Yeah.
As I can hear Shuri from Black Panther saying, colonizers. Yeah, it's time for them to go. It's time for this to stop. So
pretty much,
it's a positive thing for our people to be seeing Africans stepping up and saying, yeah, no, we're gonna try and put a stop to this, because it's been a long time.
It's been a long time coming. Yeah. So I just ran off points on that. We see anti-French sentiment in Burkina Faso. The military government ended a long-standing accord that allowed French troops to operate in the country in February, giving France 1 month to remove its forces. In Niger, allegations that President Mohamed Bazoum was a puppet for French interests were the notions used to cite his removal from power. 5 military deals with France have since been revoked by the new military government in Niger, led by General Chiani, followed by protests at the French embassy. And here's just a little write-up by BBC, ironically. They said, this historical record provides some support for these grievances. French colonial rule established political systems designed to extract valuable resources while using repressive strategies to retain control. So did British colonial rule. But what was distinctive about France's role in Africa was the extent to which it continued to engage. Its critics would say meddle in the politics and economics of its former territories after independence.
Right.
So, it's putting it lightly.
Yeah, putting it lightly. Even the BBC.
Even the BBC had to start to admit it.
It's like, this kind of wrong,
They did that.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I mean, I bigger on France right now, but, they all work together. It's not to ignore the British.
Of course. And British are the biggest, culprits of things such as colonization and conquering and the stealing of resources and other things from countries. So yeah, the British can't stand on any moral ground when it comes to this type of situation. So yeah, but interesting that they would state that in a BBC article. Very interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. So just ran it off by saying I was watching something, African Stream maybe. It's just watching them react to the Western narrative of it. And one guy did say something that kind of resonated with me, that we should be calling it a revolution, not a coup. We don't have to use their terminology on how they want to cite or push their narrative. Right. Which I know that's something Baba even pushes to us. We got to define our own meaning of things. Because if you define the meaning of things, you control the mind. So
exactly that.
We got to write our own story as Africans and tell it to generations to come through our own eyes, so we don't have to be using their terminology, which has very negative connotations.
Of course, absolutely. It's been one of their biggest weapons over the last how many years, centuries or whatnot, is the fact that they've controlled the pen of history or the pen of the story. And so they can write it however they choose to, based on their perspective, and therefore control the reaction to it. And too many people, I feel like less and less now, as another sign of the day and times, but too many people over the years are too plugged into the Western media or the Western voice. And as soon as the Western voice says, oh my goodness, look at what they're doing over there, it's a coup, they're threatening democracy, they automatically turn against whoever the West wants them to turn against. So we have to absolutely tell the story from our perspective, name things how we want to name them, call them what we want to call them, and control the perspective, especially for our people. And that's what we want to do, control the perspective for our people, so we can say, listen, this is actually good news for us, despite what they're telling you, and so that we can understand it and therefore join in, so to speak. So yeah,
exactly
most definitely
that. So the revolution will be televised.
Apparently it will be.
It will be.